So Clea, is there a book that you're reading now that you find very interesting?
There absolutely is. It is Learning Science for Instructional Designers by Clark Quinn. And I've got my fingers in three places because there's a lot that I love about the book. But I think some of these are very relevant no matter which learning audience you're designing for.
Okay.
So the first piece is really about how the nature of our cognition, well, I'll just read it.
Sure.
The situated nature of our cognition means we can be prone to insufficiently transfer knowledge from one context to another. So basically, what Clark here is encouraging us to do is think about where and how our learners are going to be applying the situation. I think when I think back to some of my early newbie instructional design mistakes, this is where I overemphasize drama. And I'm like, all right, people are going to solve a puzzle on Mars, but they don't actually work on Mars. So why not put it into a stuffy office environment with bad lighting? Because when you're in that stuffy office environment with bad lighting, you're like, oh yeah, I remember this from that training that I took.
Gotcha.
So it's all about making the practice relevant, realistic. And that's something that I really embrace now, especially in corporate learning, but also when I was teaching in higher education. I try to give my students realistic challenges, try to give them a problem to solve, and make it as close to the real world that they'd be operating in as possible.
Gotcha.
Another part of this book here, and I lost my fingers. Oh, here's one. It is about what is needed to create a supportive learning environment. And I really like thinking about this because even if we're talking about self-paced asynchronous courses, you never really learn alone. And the image here that Clark shows, maybe I'll send you a picture and we can share it in LinkedIn when we post this.
Absolutely.
It's basically four little clouds emerging from this central one that says supportive learning environment. And what you need is appreciation of differences. So thinking about a diverse group, learning from each other, openness to new ideas. That is so important to learning. If we're shut down, can't take anything in. Time for reflection is really critical. And then finally, psychological safety, right? If you're always on alert or on edge, it doesn't really create that openness to learn. So the supportive learning environment is something that I think about no matter what modality I'm designing for or what audience. These are things that help us all learn, and the environment is so important.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. And then the final one is this nice little graphic.
I'll put it in the video. I'll put it right in. Send me a picture. I'll put it in.
Yeah. And think about me like going up into this area. And it's basically thinking about difficulty on this axis and skill across. And if something is really difficult and you have low skills in that area, it's going to be very frustrating, right? If I asked you or you asked me to program a CSS template from scratch, I'd be angry at you because I haven't had practice with that. If you ask me to write a style heading, totally doable. I can remember that. I can practice it. So the goal really is thinking about the optimal flow. If someone is highly skilled, you want to increase that challenge. If someone is just starting out, you want to give them some, easy wins to encourage, to motivate them, to keep them going. So that's something that I think about, whether designing for higher education students or adult learners in the corporate world. What is that optimum level of challenge for them? And how can I maybe even give them some choice? Because we might have a variety of different learners out there. And it's good for them to think about what challenge is appropriate for them, help them reflect where they are and where they can grow.
Fantastic. I'm glad you're out there building these things for students. This is fantastic stuff. You're doing this now in the corporate world, but you were doing it in the academic world. So this is great. I should try to get Mr. Quinn on our podcast, and you and I.
Oh, that would be a dream.
Send him this and say, we really like your work, and we'd love to ask you some questions. Would you want to come on? So I'll work on it.
Yeah, big fan.
Big fan too. Thank you, Clea. That was fantastic. Great answer.
Thank you.